You are doing something right now that no other creature on this planet can do. You are taking abstract thought, invisible, weightless, formless, and turning it into sound. And that sound is landing inside another mind and becoming meaning. You have been doing this so long, so effortlessly, that you have completely forgotten how impossible it is. But there was a time before this, a long time, a time when your ancestors walked this earth, built shelters, hunted animals, raised children, mourned their dead, and did all of it without a single word. That world is almost impossible to imagine, and the real story of what happened inside it is far stranger than anyone wants to admit. Language feels like the most natural thing in the world. It feels like breathing. You wake up and words are already there, already running, already shaping everything you see and feel and want. But language is not natural. It is not ancient. In the full span of human existence, language is almost embarrassingly new. Your species has walked the earth for roughly 300,000 years. The best evidence suggests that complex spoken language, the kind capable of expressing abstract thought, emerged somewhere between 50,000 and 100,000 years ago. That means for the first 200,000 years of your existence, your ancestors lived in a world without words. 200,000 years of silence, not complete silence. They made sounds, grunts, calls, emotional vocalizations. Primatologist Robin Dunbar at Oxford University has spent decades studying the evolution of language and argues that early hominid communication was probably closer to what you hear from chimpanzees than to anything you would recognize as speech. Emotional signals, alarm calls, contact sounds, noises that said danger or food, or I am here, but not why, not how, not what if, not remember when. The question that scientists have wrestled with for over a century is not just when language appeared, it is what existed before it. What was happening inside those minds? Were your ancestors thinking without words? And if they were, what did that thinking feel like? The answer is one of the most unsettling discoveries in cognitive science, because the research suggests that your ancestors were not empty. They were not blank. They were thinking, richly, complexly, emotionally, in a way that had no words attached to it at all. Cognitive archaeologist Francesco D'Errico at the University of Bordeaux has spent years studying the physical evidence left behind by pre-linguistic humans. What he found demolished the old assumption that wordless meant thoughtless. Ochre pigment applied to shells, geometric engravings on rock, burial sites where bodies were laid with deliberate care and personal objects. These are the traces of minds that were planning, remembering, symbolizing, and grieving, all without language. Your ancestor crouched over a piece of ochre 120,000 years ago and made a mark. That mark meant something. There was intention behind it, and meaning, and probably pride. There were no words inside that mind to describe what the mark meant. But the meaning was there anyway. This is where it gets strange. Because if your ancestors were thinking without language, then what were they thinking in? Researchers call it embodied cognition. The idea is that before language, thought was not abstract and verbal. It was physical, sensory, and immediate. Your ancestor did not think the word fire. They felt heat. They saw orange. They remembered the specific sensation of burned skin. Thought was made of images, of muscle memory, of emotional residue, of pattern recognition so deep it operated below anything that could be put into words, even if words had existed. You still do this. Right now, parts of your brain are processing information in ways that never become language. Your body knows things your words have not caught up to yet. That feeling in your chest before you can name what is wrong. That sense of a room being dangerous before your mind has explained why. That wordless certainty that something is about to happen. These are not failures of language. These are the original operating system, the one that ran your species for 200,000 years before words arrived. Psychologist Daniel Kahneman, whose work on thinking divided cognition into fast automatic systems and slow deliberate ones, identified that the faster system operates largely without language. It is ancient. It is pre-verbal. It is the system that kept your ancestors alive when there were no words to describe what was chasing them. That system is still running inside you right now, underneath every sentence you think. But here is the twist that changes everything. Language did not just give your ancestors a new tool for communicating. It changed the nature of thought itself. Linguist Benjamin Lee Whorf proposed in the early 20th century that the language you speak shapes the reality you can perceive. The Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, as it became known, remains one of the most debated ideas in cognitive science. But the evidence that has accumulated since then points toward something remarkable. Language does not just describe thought. It creates thought. It makes certain ideas possible that were simply not thinkable before. Consider time. Without language, your ancestor lived in an eternal present. They could remember the past. Memory does not require words. But they could not discuss the past with another person, could not build a shared narrative about it, could not say last winter was harder than this one, or my father's father knew where water was. Language created shared time. It allowed a group of humans to synchronize their memories into a collective story. And that collective story became something entirely new: culture. Before language, knowledge died with the individual who held it. If the best hunter in the group discovered that a particular plant cured fever, that knowledge existed in one mind. When that mind stopped, the knowledge stopped. Language changed this completely. Now knowledge could transfer. It could accumulate. It could be refined and passed forward across generations. Language was not just communication. It was the invention of collective memory. The moment language emerged, your ancestors stopped being isolated individuals and started being something new, a networked species, pooling intelligence across time and distance. Anthropologist Daniel Everett, who spent decades living with the Pirahan people of the Amazon, a community whose language lacks features considered universal by most linguists, found that language shapes not just what a community communicates, but how they experience reality. The Pirahan have no words for numbers beyond 1, 2, and many. They have no creation myth. They live, as Everett described it, in a radical present tense. Their language reflects a cognitive world structured entirely differently from the one that modern language creates. What this tells you is that your ancestors were not simply modern humans who had not yet learned to speak. They were cognitively different. Their experience of being alive was structured differently. Time felt different. The self felt different. Memory, identity, planning, grief. All of these were experienced through a completely different architecture than the one language built inside you. And then something happened. Somewhere between 50,000 and 100,000 years ago, in a change that researchers still cannot fully explain, language appeared. And with it came what archaeologists call the Great Leap Forward. Cave paintings, sculptures, long-distance trade, elaborate burial rituals, astronomical tracking. The evidence of complex symbolic culture exploded in the archaeological record, almost simultaneously, across multiple sites around the world. It was as if a switch had been flipped. Because a switch had been flipped. The leading theory is a genetic mutation, a small change in a gene called FOXP2, which is involved in the fine motor control of the mouth and throat. Humans carry a version of this gene that no other primate does. It allows for the precise, rapid articulation of sounds that spoken language requires. A single genetic change, and the architecture of human civilization became possible. Your ability to say the word water took 300,000 years to evolve. The anatomy to form the sound, the neural wiring to attach meaning to it, the social infrastructure to agree on what it meant, the culture to pass that agreement forward to the next generation. Every word in every language that has ever existed is the product of a chain that long. And yet here you are, doing it effortlessly, not even noticing. The words arriving before you ask for them, shaping your reality before you know it is being shaped. Tonight you will have a conversation. Words will move between you and another person, and ideas will transfer, invisible, weightless, impossible, from one mind to another. You will not think about how extraordinary that is. You will not think about the 200,000 years your ancestors spent on this planet before it was possible. But somewhere underneath those words, underneath the language that structures everything you feel and think and remember, the older system is still running, still thinking in heat and color and muscle and fear, still operating the way your ancestors operated for 200,000 years before the first word was ever spoken. You are not just a speaking animal. You are a pre-linguistic animal that learned to speak. And the older part of you never forgot how to think without words.